throws and those types of throws more than the others. So then we've got some defensive drills. Defensive drills are lanes, touch the disc, and 2v3. I'm just going to talk about touch the disc real quick. Basically, touch the disc, you put a disc in the center of the field, wherever it is, and then you have an offensive player next to a defensive player, and the offensive player is just trying to run and touch the disc. Okay? The defensive player has to side shuffle back and forth with their hands behind their back so that they are using their body and their footwork to prevent the offensive player from getting to the disc. And I really like this one as a start of like a defensive practice, as a way to just kind of get us moving laterally and forcing us to have to use our body a little bit to control the space. I don't use this with my super new players because I'm not ready for them to be able to. I want them to learn how to play defense without their body first, because if they can play defense with their feet first, then they're going to be a better defensive player when they finally do start to use a little bit of body to control the cutter. But for my more advanced players, I really like it because they get to use their body and their footwork to have to control where the cutter is going. So I really like that one. Lanes, you're going to have an offensive player on one side of the kind of set of cones. There's an imaginary line between the cones, and then a defensive player is on the other side. And basically the idea here is that the offensive player is trying to juke the defense and just run back and forth for like 20 to 30 seconds. And you can, obviously set that time to however long you want it to be. But then the defense is trying to do their best to stay as close to the offensive player as possible. So there's no contact here. And basically the main idea of this drill is that you want your defensive players to work on having their hips be open to the offense as much as possible. You don't ever want them having to turn completely and go in one direction or the other. And that allows them to try to move laterally or run sideways in order to stay with their cutter. You can also modify this drill to have the pair start at the cone. They run to the middle, and then the offense gets one move. So either the offense continues running to the cone, or they fake and come back to the cone, and basically the defense is trying to beat them to whichever cone they make the choice at. Obviously, it's really hard to win as the defense in this drill, but the goal is not necessarily to win, but to work on footwork and keeping your hips open to the offense. The final defensive drill you have is 2 versus 3. So in this drill, you're going to have 3 offensive players that are starting in the start position, and then 2 defensive players that are starting inside the box. The offense starts with the disc. The stall is usually pretty short, like 1 to 4, 1 to 5, and the offense must work the disc from the start position to the goal. There's no back to the goal, so if they really want to throw it way out the back, they can, but that kind of defeats the purpose of the drill. The purpose of the drill is for the defense to work on switching people off, right? So you don't really want to be guarding the person with the disc because you're not going to have an advantage there, right? You're leaving a cutter wide open. So you've got to drop off once somebody catches the disc, but it also works on being disc side. So if the disc is near the start, you don't want to be standing behind your person because it's an easy throw for them. Instead, you want to make sure that you're between them and the disc, and you work on staying in contact with people. So like you put your hand on their hip and you look at the disc because you need to know what's being thrown because it's such a small space that you don't have any time to react. So it allows players to work on quick decision making as a defense, staying with their man, but also being in the right position. This is definitely a drill that's going to be more for your advanced kids. I did this with the YCC kids, and they absolutely loved it. They really like the idea. We did it without any foul calls, so they really like the idea that they can actually kind of bump into people and move around. And it's kind of a good way for you to teach players that contact is okay. Obviously, you want to control based on kind of who you have and what level you're teaching. We also did this with my club team, and we had a lot of fun with it. It was a great way to kind of get the energy flowing for practice. So a lot of different ways that you can use this drill. You can play where fouls are on, right? So you're not allowed to really touch, mess with the player, or you can play with fouls off. So I really like that drill. It's a fun energy drill. You want to have lots of people on the sidelines here cheering everybody on, lots of talk. Really for all these drills, lots of talk and energy, especially when you've got low numbers, is critical, right? Because people are going to be tired because they're constantly doing stuff during your practice.